meditations of my heart and my mind be acceptable to you, gracious and loving God. Allow me to be an instrument of your will, your peace, your love. God, guard my way and guide my steps this day, that I may serve you faithfully and trust in you. Might be a little strange sermon, but I tell you about 3 incidences in my life. Each one has probably a message. The first one is I'm going to read what was in my high school yearbook. The yearbook was dedicated to Harry Hetzel. Harry Hetzel. Each of us knew him. This is quoting the yearbook. Harry Hetzel was of singular significance. Waxing the floor, checking out athletic equipment, making a field, or marking a field, or driving a bus to an athletic event. Harry imparts a unique human quality. We remember Harry's chess matches, his speech at the prom, his ring of keys. Other moves may be shared, but in Harry's case, there is just one. He's not only an expert in sports, but an intellectual of the first order. And many of us have been turned back by prospective bits of advice in Greek or German. Mindful of a certain dignity and a rare gentleness of character, the staff respectfully dedicates the pennant to Harry E. Hetzel. That was in 1963. He was our custodian. The administration wasn't overjoyed with us. He was a good man, a simple man, never looking to be more, knowing that what he was able to give came from his heart. In 1959, I was a 14-year-old kid, country bumpkin. You have to remember, I went to a one-room schoolhouse. And I was selected to go to the Schiff Scout Reservation in Mendham, New Jersey. Schiff was one of 2 junior leader training camps in the United States. The other one was in New Mexico at Philmont. Schiff isn't there anymore. They were operated by the National Council of the Boy Scouts. My parents drove me there, and after visiting my leaders, my scoutmaster, as it turns out, and senior patrol leader, they left me. They just went home. I knew nobody. Here's this 14-year-old kid, wet behind his ears, a bumpkin. I didn't know where I was. I mean, I knew where I was, but I didn't know where I was. They showed me to my tent that I'd spend the next 2 weeks in, shared with another person who I didn't know. The first week consisted of basically a boot camp for 14-year-olds. Marching all hours of the night and day, cooking our own food, learning to work together, forming an 8-person patrol with positions rotating between the people there, washing dishes, sterilizing dishes, firing the quartermaster, patrol leader. The first week was truly like a boot camp. The purpose was to learn leadership skills to take back to our troop, to our districts and our councils. What I learned was the importance of cooperation, humbleness, and the importance, most importantly, how to be a follower. How to be a follower is when we learn and practice these things, we learn to be a leader. To be a good leader, one needs to learn how to follow. To be a good leader, one needs to learn to follow, not control. To be, demand, or berate those we are leading. That same year, I bought my first dog, Arna, which is German Shepherd. I bought him from my neighbor who helped me train him. Carl was part of the, I'll admit this, but he was part of the German army during World War II. He was so glad the war was over. He was just overjoyed it was over because he was going to be next. Up until that point, he trained horses and dogs. Some years later, I bought my first tourist bow. They taught me patience, perseverance, and cooperation, along with gentleness and respect. Dogs and horses learn through repetition. They learn through trust. Certainly, they didn't really need to listen to me, and there was little I could have done. You have to remember that the horse bow was 1,400 pounds. If he didn't want to go with me, if we didn't have a partnership, there was no way I could do that. We had to form a trust, a respect, and a cooperation so we could work together, forming this partnership to do our work together. I'm going through it now with my little puppy. After witnessing the transfiguration of Jesus on the mountaintop, perhaps James and John realized that Jesus was more than just a teacher. Since they had seen the glory, they may have thought that they had an inside track to be at the side of Jesus. Although, at that point, they really didn't understand what he was all about. The way they asked was really comical, maybe a little presumptuous. If you remember your kids growing up, they probably asked you the same thing in the same way. They said, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." Wow, I'd like a Jaguar, Dad. I'd really like that, Could you do that for me? Almost sounds like a child talking to his parent. Jesus explained that it wasn't his to grant these requests. When the other disciples learned of this, they became angry with James and John. And Jesus, overhearing them, called them together. And he compared the rulers of the Gentile world and what he was all about. Whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be a slave to all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. We need to remember that Jesus was on a journey to the cross. However, James and John, not having the whole picture, are unsure of what this all means. Here it is, a symbol of suffering that reveals God's glory. The glory of Jesus is defined by the cross. God's glory is not about giving power or control, gaining power or control over other people. It's not about a privilege at the table. No special place at the table. God's glory is revealed through humble service and even a willingness to sacrifice for the mission of God. The disciples' reaction revealed a human temptation to be drawn toward glory for ourselves rather than God's glory, which is meant to liberate. God's glory is meant to liberate and free people. This encounter with Jesus speaks to all of us. Even to preachers. Preachers need to remember that our preaching is not a vessel for our own self-gratification or adoration or anything. Our task is to allow ourselves to be the vessels that are used by Jesus to liberate and to free God's people from sin and to spread the good news of God's grace. Not about us at all. That's true for all of us. Jesus takes the time to reframe how to understand the power that he is talking about. Jesus cautions his disciples not to be like the Gentiles. There is no stairway to claim for one's own self-glory. Disciples of Christ, you and me, are to live differently. Whoever wants to be great will be a servant to others, revealing the heart of God by their service to others. An example of this, and I thought about it, might not be the best example. We've all seen the bees fly across the sky this time of year as the geese migrate. That lead goose, man, that's a tough one. He takes the brunt of it all, but he's willing to do that in service of all the others to make everybody else's journey a little easier. Christian discipleship is based on this principle. It is better to serve than to be served. And this is not saying that those who have a willingness to serve should be taken advantage of or used by others. There are many examples of this type of abuse. People that are willing to serve are taken advantage of. You've probably seen it or experienced it in the workplace. You've probably seen it or experienced in some congregations, or people within the congregation may take. I've seen it happen in congregations where the congregation or the people take advantage of their ministers. Taken seriously, the teaching of Jesus regarding servanthood can be quite life-altering. The other disciples became angry with Jesus and with James and John when they learned of the request. Perhaps, just perhaps, they wanted the positions as well, but they were angry because they didn't get there first. This story shows that at the interval of time between the time when Jesus walked on this earth and today, things haven't really changed that much. It seems that humans have an innate desire to be leaders, not necessarily good leaders, to be in positions of power, to be in control of others. Not good reasons. Secondly, our understanding and the practice of leadership has not developed too much. It is common to see people vying for positions of power in many organizations. You see it in the church, you see it in your place of employment, you see it in schools, or in politics today. All we have to do is look at today. There appears to be something very appealing and attractive about being powerful and having control over others. But it's not going to get you into heaven. It's not going to impress Jesus. In this reading, Jesus begins to reveal the purpose of the cross and his part of it. Notice in verse 45 that Jesus does not say his life will be taken. Rather, he states, quote, "For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life." He willingly gave his life as a ransom for many. As a disciple of Jesus, as one of his followers, we are to do what Jesus exemplified in his life. We have all, at one point or another, been in the position of power over another person. All of us. Not a person in this room wasn't in that position of power. Parents over children, teachers over students, chairperson over committee members, employers over employees, pastors over the laity, judges in courtrooms. They're bad. Some of them really misuse their power. By seeking to serve others, in initiating the leadership style of Jesus, we can be set free from our own desires and our need for self-validation, for self-gratification, by seeking to serve others rather than to exercise our power to control them. As Isaiah described in the peaceful kingdom, this is in Isaiah chapter 11, "The wolf shall live with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid. The calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them." A little child shall lead them. And in the prayer that Jesus taught us, that we say, we're going to say it shortly, those of us that are going to be at the Lutheran Council meeting will say it again. Part of it, quote, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Perhaps this is making reference to the second coming of Jesus. However, we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait. The idea is that we create heaven here on earth. In part, this can be done through our leadership style, how we treat one another, that each one of us can take on an attitude of Jesus, an attitude of service, an attitude